I'm Judy Shaw for NYSE Floor Talk. Joining me today is Dave Alpern. Dave is the president of Joe Gibbs Racing. Dave, thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, Judy, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about it. Appreciate it.
So, Dave, very exciting weekend. It's the return of NASCAR. Everyone's very excited about this.
It's just great to hear you say that out loud. Yeah, we're so excited to be racing. We last took a checkered flag 10 weeks ago and had no idea what was in store. And, there came a point where we didn't know, would we race in June, July, or ever this year. And so to have everything work out where we're getting ready to go racing here in May, I would say excited is an understatement. So our industry is really pumped about the chance to get the brands that we represent back on the racetrack where they belong.
How is NASCAR well positioned to return to racing, and what can we expect to see on Sunday?
Well, for your first question, so NASCAR has done a phenomenal job working with the teams. I mean, it's been nonstop really for those 10 weeks. And the nice thing about our sport that we have an advantage of in terms of versus maybe some other sports is that we play at these massive outdoor arenas that have literally hundreds of acres. And by nature, our competitors don't contact each other. In fact, the drivers, when you think about it, are already wearing full helmets, gloves, fire suits, and they are isolated inside the cockpit of a car. The pit crews who prepare the cars and then during the race change the tires and so forth, they're also wearing complete protective fireproof gear. They don't touch each other. They'll have added PPEs this weekend. And so again, I think the scale of the arenas we play in gives us a little bit of an advantage. And what NASCAR's done is they've really arranged it so everyone will be completely compartmentalized. And so there's 40 different teams competing. Each team will bring a maximum of 16 people that it takes, from the person driving it to the people setting it up. But they will be isolated from each other. They won't interact. The people that are there for TV won't necessarily come where the crew are. Everyone will be sort of segmented, and the driver will actually be completely isolated to themselves. From the moment they get there, they'll be brought to their car, strap in, and then get out. And so I think for all those reasons, yes, we're well positioned to get back. And I think what you'll see is a phenomenal race. And I think once the green flag starts, obviously it will look a little odd to not have anyone in the stands, but the competition will look and feel and sound the same. So keep in mind, in our sport, you normally don't hear the fans anyway. You just hear engines. And so it's going to sound the same.
Okay, so is NASCAR doing anything special around the return to racing?
We are, and I'm actually glad you mentioned that. Yeah, so the race is actually called the Real Heroes 400. And so we are honoring the frontline heroes, the medical workers that are really the ones that are the reason we're able to go back and do what we do. And so what's kind of neat is that normally over the door of every car would be the name of the driver. Well, this week those will be crossed out, and there will be the name of an actual frontline hero who will be honored. We've been doing quite a bit with social media so that folks can get to know these heroes. And I think everything from the invocation to the command to start engines will be done by that group. And so we're really, really pumped about that and get to bring light to some folks who really deserve some attention this weekend.
How has NASCAR been able to keep their fans engaged during this time?
Yeah, well, gosh, what's been so unique, and you have a lot of scripts for how things may go during a year, but one of them wasn't to race 4 times and then get shut down for 10 weeks. So yeah, what was really amazing was that, the partnership of our whole group. You had the tracks, you had the teams, you had NASCAR, and then you had our great television partner, Fox. We have Fox and we have NBC. And so Fox, for this portion of the season, already had the slots on television. So we went right into iRacing. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with it, don't think of a video game, because really what it is a high-tech simulation where basically every week our drivers have been racing, with the exception of this past week, they've been racing at the actual tracks that we should have been racing on those given weekends during the broadcast slot that we should have had with Fox. And so these drivers, and what's great again about our sport versus playing another sport on a computer, is it actually feels very similar. The skill set it takes to be an iRacer is very similar to driving. In fact, many of our drivers hone their skills in the same fashion during the off season. So you had real drivers competing in what looked like real race cars in real races that were broadcast by the actual broadcast team. And what's so crazy, Judy, is we didn't know how it would go. And we had over 1 million people on average tuning in to watch these
Wow.
races, which there are a lot of programs that would kill to have an audience like that. And you know, the data even showed that about a third of those were new fans to our sport. So we're really excited that we've exposed some new folks to our sport who hopefully on Sunday will tune into Fox to watch the real thing at Darlington.
Dave, why do you think that major corporations are sponsors of NASCAR? There's so many of them.
Well, I mean, that is what I would say. If our sport has a secret sauce, it's the way that we work with sponsors. And sponsors in every league are a part of it. But in NASCAR, here's the difference. And I speak a lot at universities and I talk about the business of NASCAR and the sort of the image that I try to get across of what's different from our sport with sponsors than others. And that is that in our sport, the sponsor actually is the identity of the team. So in other words, we have 4 teams, which is unique in and of itself. We have 4 teams competing against each other. So of the 40 cars, 4 of them belong to Joe Gibbs Racing. Each of the identities of those teams, Eric Jones will race the DeWalt Atomic Toyota Camry, Denny Hamlin, the FedEx Camry, Kyle Busch, the M&M's Camry, Martin Truex Jr., Bass Pro Shops. It's the actual identity of the team. And what that does, for a sponsor, it's not just the branding and the exposure to the fans. Because those sponsors and those brands actually are the team, it means they're each teammates with each other. And so what it does is it promotes the idea of them doing business together. FedEx and Stanley Black & Decker, and you go down the list in Toyota, and all of our partners, they go to the racetrack 38 weeks a year together, and the executives become friends and they work together and they want to do business together. And so there's this organic way that business just happens as a result of these teams. But again, the great thing about, our sport is the lion's share of our revenue comes from sponsorship. So these teams are the sponsors' teams. I say it all the time. It's your team. It's their team. And so I think that's, when we win a race, I've seen executives of corporations crying as they walk to victory lane. And it's because it's their team that just won. I doubt they cry at other sporting events, but when they come here, it's that passion because it's their team that wins a race or their team that wins a championship. It's that direct connect special.
Okay. And finally, how has COVID-19 impacted Joe Gibbs Racing?
Well, Judy, I think like really every company in America, I mean, it was fairly major, starting with, we all didn't come to work. And, I've worked here for 27 years. And fortunately, my side of the business, talking to folks and dealing with sponsors, you could do that from home. But if you're welding a car or fabricating a part, you can't do that from home. So many people, went home for several weeks. And again, as I mentioned, our partners are what makes this happen. Every one of our partners, like every other company in America, was affected. So we stayed in constant contact with most of them, kind of finding out how their businesses are doing. And for us, just as important as us getting back to work and getting back on the track is our partners getting back to work. And, Toyota selling cars and FedEx and Stanley Black & Decker and all of their brands. And again, all of our partners being able to get back to normal. And that's what we're hoping and praying for. And we're encouraged to see things starting to open up for them. But it's been very different, but we've had to learn how to do business differently. We had to learn how to prepare for this race with a skeleton crew. We don't have our whole crew here in the building. And again, we'll be okay, but it came with a lot of protocols and things look very different downstairs. I'm not used to people wearing masks here in the shop. And again, we have an 18-page protocol just to enter the building during the day. And our folks have done a tremendous job. The same will be true entering the racetrack this weekend. I'm a team president and I won't even be at the race this weekend because I don't touch a car. I'm obviously non-essential. So it's just been very different and it looks very different, but our sport has adapted just wonderfully. And again, has worked really well with local and state governments who we've been really encouraged at the way that they've sort of embraced us and really welcomed us to come back to their states and begin to race. And so we can't wait to start it off in South Carolina, and then we'll be back right here in Charlotte for the Coke 600 on Memorial Day weekend.